Hi everyone, and a very special welcome to our second live episode here on InfoSec Live today, where we're going to give our audience the chance to learn from and interact with our industry's leadership. And today we have a very special episode digging into the life of a tech scout with Jacob Friedman. But before we get to the show, my name's Simon. I'm the founder of the InfoSec Live community and also your host for this event today. And by sharing stories and best practice over the last few months, it's led to 10,000 hours of our content being watched on YouTube by you, our amazing subscribers. So a huge thank you for your engagement. And thanks to that support, it's also led to the launch of our in-person community-driven events here in the UK and the United States, with a focus on knowledge sharing, networking, and definitely no sales pitches. Check out our events page for more info. Links should be in the description. Our next event is here in the UK next week on the 25th in Manchester, sponsored by Apex at IQ. And then back in London on June the 21st to coincide with InfoSecurity Europe with Next DLP, before heading back over the pond to Stafford, Virginia, to the Cyberbytes Foundation Quantico Cyber Hub on July the 13th. That's before the August mayhem begins. So we've got quite a few events planned in the US in August. We're hitting Tampa, Las Vegas, Austin, and I believe New York City as well. So we are still accepting sponsorship inquiries for our US tour later this year. The UK one is sold out, but if you're interested, drop me a message if you'd like more info. Meanwhile, back in the community, Precious, our community director here at InfoSec Live, has been organizing group study sessions, CV workshops, networking sessions, jobs alert, and a new 8-week scholarship workshop to help those looking to break into the industry. Make sure you check out the community if you haven't already. Again, link is in the description. And if you'd like to offer some sponsorship or some assistance with your time to the community, please do reach out to Precious or myself. Help us break down some of the barriers to entry that we have in the industry today. But if you don't have the time and you still want to support the wider InfoSec Live community, our scholarship fund, or indeed just buy me a cheeky decaf coffee, we do have a few ways you can show your appreciation. First up, the ability to purchase super stickers in the YouTube chat if you'd like your question bumped up to the top, and 3 tiers of membership allowing you to show your support in any way that you can. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. We want to make these events interactive, and make sure you drop any questions you may have in the chat. You'll be pleased to know, time for Simon to stop rambling. It's time for the show. Let's bring Jacob on. Just got to find the right stinger and he'll be with us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on, man.
I'm hoping you can hear me now.
Yeah. Our audio is all sorted out now. There we go.
Excellent. Before we dig in, I noticed the man who introduced us has just jumped into the audience there, Jacob. Mr. Steve Hindle Stitch. Thank you very much for the intro, kind sir, and I hope you're having a great week. Let's catch up tomorrow. But yeah, so Jacob and I met for the first time at RSA a few weeks ago, sitting in a hotel, grabbing a bit of a breather. Steve said to me, there's someone you've got to meet. This guy is absolutely fascinating, really good guy. And here we are, Jacob.
Here we are, man.
And here we are. So let's start off by getting you to open up and tell us a bit about your journey into how you got to where you are today. And then we're going to dig into my question, which is, what is a tech scout?
Yeah. Well, I guess like how I got here, you know, there's a long story and there's a lot of different kind of situations that just the stars aligned, you know. But really my interest within cybersecurity and hacking and whatnot started after I got DDoS'd by a losing team in Call of Duty. So after that happened to me, I was like, you know, holy crap, what just happened to me and how do I defend against it? And so that kind of started my journey into just being interested in it. But really started to make my pathway into cyber more strongly after joining my recent team, 3Tree Tech. I had previously had exposure to surface level elements of IT and whatnot throughout my other sales jobs, but I've really had the opportunity to dive in with both feet at my current
And
team.
how long have you been there now?
About a year and 3 months.
Okay. And where were you before that, Jacob?
I was at a great company that's it's a VAR, value added reseller, called Pacific Office Automation. But I primarily did like printers, phone systems. I did managed IT systems and just surface levels of security in terms of like backup and whatnot.
Okay. And is cybersecurity something you wanted to pivot into or do more of within your career, or is it just something that's happened? It is, yeah. After that DDoS on Call of Duty, clearly.
100%.
So the thing that really took my breath away when we met was your clear passion for what you do. So for those who don't know what a tech scout is, which was me 3.5 weeks ago before I met you, do you mind just giving everyone a bit of an overview about what that role entails?
Yeah, so my roles evolved a bit, and my current title is strategic account director. But really, my team, our core mission is to empower leaders, and one of the ways that we do that is through tech scouting. There's a really noisy marketplace out there with a bunch of vendors all claiming that they can cure cancer and do X, Y, Z, and do the most miraculous things ever. And it's really hard for a lot of these leaders to filter through the noise. And so my team identifies and vets a lot of disruptive early stage technology,
Okay.
typically around Series A timeline, and we bring it to the mid to large enterprise.
Sorry, I'm making notes to make sure I don't forget. So
No worries.
speaking to a few CISOs recently about the struggles they have bringing in new vendors rather than the traditional ones who've got the track record, they've been around, they've kind of proved what they do. So it's easier for them to take that to the board. How do you get these startups to overcome those hurdles? And is that part of your role?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a big educational type role that I have to take, right? With educating these leaders on what they're doing and how they're doing it differently. Because if they've seen it a lot, there's two different types of startups, I would say. One that is innovating in a space that has active competitors. So it's a little bit easier in terms of selling to the enterprise because you're just replacing a budget. You're taking something out and putting it in that's a little bit better. But
Yeah.
some of these other startups that are really paving their own lane, there's a whole other dimension towards empowering the leaders that I work with in terms of they have to create a new budget for this. So how do you justify that investment? That's a whole pathway of conversation.
Do you think that there are an awful lot of vendors vying for the same small piece of budget in this industry at the moment?
Yeah, I
And what
mean,
I suppose I should clarify what I mean by that sort of general sweeping statement. I mean more the types of firms that there are. There's a massive increase in vulnerability management firms at the moment, for instance, which I would argue is only a small piece of the overall cyber budget, but there seems to be an awful lot of players in certain places within the industry all vying for that small piece of the pie.
there is, and it's hard because, a big frustration of the leaders that I work with is that tool sprawl is becoming such a big problem. There's so many tools that all will attack the piece of the puzzle, one puzzle piece at a time. And so they're always looking for, how can I consolidate the amount of vendors that I work with? Make billing easier, make everything, more efficient for them to track.
And is that the biggest challenge in your job, or should I say, what is the biggest challenge in your role?
I mean, the biggest challenge for me is finding people that align with our mindset, because ultimately you got to find people to work with that believe in the same things that you do. And so we're kind of looking for people that want to know what they don't know. And there's some,
Let's take that a step back then. Talk to me
yeah,
about the values of the organization you work for and what it is you're
yeah.
trying to achieve.
So my organization, like we have several different culture pillars, but two that really stand out to me that are close to my heart are constant and never-ending improvement. So always looking for ways to learn and grow and do things 1% better. And the other one is to have fun, just to not take ourselves too seriously and just be, authentic human beings and whatnot.
I think the second one's my favorite.
It's mine too.
And we've skimmed over I'm going to take a step back because we've skimmed over a lot of the things you've done to get where you are today. And I remember going back a couple of weeks when I first put the post up about you coming on, there were some really interesting comments in the messages from people that know you saying how tenacious you were, how amazing you were, and also that you're a bit of a martial artist as well. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up doing martial arts, I really, I started, I'm a small person. Simon knows from meeting me, I'm like 5'3". I'm a small dude. But I was always, the smallest in my group. And I started wrestling in first grade. Um, and so I did wrestling from first grade to senior year. So it's about 12 years ish of wrestling. And throughout that time, I also got into Jiu Jitsu, boxing, and overall mixed martial arts. And so, even now and throughout college and whatnot, I'll, drop into various gyms and just go spar just to keep myself sharp, but definitely don't practice as much as I used to.
No, I used to kickbox long time ago now. I'm a bit physically broken to even fight my way out of a paper bag these days, Jacob. But you mentioned that you were small. I just want to cover off the point that I've been knocked out much harder by smaller people than I have taller people. So size should never be something that you make assumptions of when you're stepping in the ring. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Tell me how you use what you've learned there. The Jacob Friedman, the tech badass, Stitches put.
Ah,
Love that.
yeah.
Tell me how
It's
you bring that tenacity and drive into what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a willingness to not give up, just having that grit and belief in yourself. There's a lot of hard times and adversity that you counter through martial arts, and you get humbled regularly if you're doing it right. You should always be seeking out people that are
Yeah,
better than you at what you're looking to get better at, so they can elevate you.
absolutely. So for those who are in the audience, we've got a mixture. We've got a mixture of leadership. We've also got a mixture of people looking to break into the industry, which if you spend any time on LinkedIn, you'll notice that there are many of at the moment. What can they do differently to stand out to prospective employers?
I mean, the main thing is you just got to seize your destiny. No one's going to do it for you. It starts with kind of building your online presence and whatnot. But if there's someone you want to connect to, like build familiarity, like comment on their posts. There's a variety of things you can do that makes it so when it comes time to the moment when they're looking over their name, they recognize you. And that's like a really important step to stand out because everyone's getting flooded with a sea of applications trying to vie for the same position you are. So anything that you can do to set yourself apart is really important.
Are you okay with me dropping your LinkedIn profile
Yeah,
link in the
of
chat?
course. Always happy to connect.
Thank you. Let me do that now because I think for me, building your network is one of the most important things when it comes to whether you're looking to build a business or whether you're looking to build a career. It's making sure that you connect with the right people. And going back to a session that Carlos Guerrero ran for me in the community earlier today about building your LinkedIn profile up, the comment I made there was a lot of people seem to focus on the numbers game. And for me, numbers are vanity. Meaningful connections and relationships are sanity, to coin a really cheesy phrase. And I think there's too much focus on I've got X amount of followers when that's
Mm,
great, but are they the people who you can help? And are they the people who effectively in our roles that you're going to end up doing business with as well, rather than just people who are applauding everything you do every 5 minutes? Any
yeah,
thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a bit of both. Like I would say quality over quantity, but you still got to focus on growing your network in terms of quantity.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I mean, who you align yourself with also is a reflection of you. You become who you surround yourself with. So also, I would say in your journey to expanding your reach and expanding your networks, just don't compromise your morals or integrity in the search of getting that kind of recognition and dopamine hit. You know,
Yeah.
I would say if you do things the right way, the universe has a way of circling back and making it
Oh,
right
I'm
by you.
I'm I'm all with you on that. I mean, I
Yeah.
shared a bit of my story with you when we met, but I went from being a very egotistical, arrogant, selfish, driven asshole to through my own self-destruction, realigning my values of what success really were. And do you know what? The last 3 years where I've been focusing on helping other people, including obviously my family, my life has just turned around completely. And I've met amazing people like Stitch, you know, who's in the audience, who invited me to his house back in March. He won't
Great
invite me
guy.
back again, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, absolutely great guy. And there's so many others, you know, other great people in the community too. But one really important question that's come through from Justin Brady is, I've got to ask you about getting ripped. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Justin. You know, take care of your body, take care of your mind. You know, make sure that you're all present in what you do.
So do you have, I'm not going to let you get away with that short answer. Do you have a routine for that?
Yeah, I wake up at around 4:30 every morning and I hit the gym and I hit every day. I've done that since the past 3, 4 years before work. Kind of just that was initially started that routine because I've always been a gym goer and been athletic because of martial arts, but the early morning gym goer was built out of necessity when I used to work at the VAR and I was working, 70 to 80-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes that was the only time that I could, fit that in. And so you do what you gotta, right?
I mean, and the gym isn't for everyone, right? I mean,
Fair.
I used to get the gym all the time. For the last 3 years, I've done nowhere near enough exercise. But for the last 4 months, is it 4 months? Started in January. Yeah. I started swimming again pretty much every day. And the difference for my mental health from doing that
Huge.
exercise, again, doing it in the morning sets you up for the day. And a good friend of mine, or a saying that we used to sort of bandy about between us, is shiny shoes, shiny mind. And I think if you get up and you start your day right, you make your bed, you clean the kitchen before you leave, you get all those things done, and you're already nailing things down in your list of things to achieve. If you get up late, you know, your hair's all over the place, your clothes aren't ironed, your whole day continues like that. So I think someone here who's got 6 children, you have to kind of get up early in
Ooh.
this house to get. Yeah, that's why I look so old. I'm only 25, joking. It's you have to get up early to get that time to get yourself mentally prepared. And I think
Yeah.
whether you're job seeking or running a business, making sure you start the day right
There's
is
an interesting
100%.
phrase on that, and it's like so it was a silly thing that a sales leader on LinkedIn said that I saw. And it's like called swallow the frog, right? Like start your day with the hardest, most challenging tasks. And for me, that's going to the gym, and then everything before noon, I'll typically be trying to crush my hardest, most difficult tasks or most important meetings and stuff like that. Because I always know that my energy tends to dip as soon as I eat lunch, right?
Yeah.
So just kind of knowing yourself and knowing your energy levels, I think, for me, that's been a big value add in my life is starting with the hardest things in the morning.
You said about being present a little while ago as well.
Mm,
I've got ADHD, and managing kind of the ups and downs, I suppose, has been difficult throughout my life. You know, 1 minute you're 100 miles an hour getting everything done. Next minute you're really struggling to do anything. And the one thing I've learned over the last few years is to embrace whatever you're feeling to a certain extent. So I used to fight it if I was struggling before. Now I'll try and embrace it and know that it's not going to be like that forever. I might have one day where I'm struggling a bit, but it's going to be better tomorrow. And would you agree with that, or would you have any advice for people who some days struggle more than others?
yeah, I mean, it's something I struggle with too. And there's definitely situations in which I'm better than others.
Yeah,
For me, it's a lot of whenever I really need to stop and just concentrate, I kind of try to close my eyes and I focus on breathing. Breathing techniques are everyone says things about them and it can seem a little bit corny, but even in martial arts and even in lifting or in a lot of different things, it's a really great way to center yourself and create that mind to muscle connection type thing to where you can just slow it down. For me, it helps me slow the brain down because as you
yeah,
said, I'm typically moving a million miles a minute in, 10
yeah.
different directions.
I think while we're on the breathing techniques, I've got to say a big thank you to Stitch for the box breathing technique that he taught
Is
me.
it like the this? Yep, that was
Yeah,
so good.
only a few weeks ago. So with a lot of people who have lots of things going through their mind, sometimes I struggle to drop off in the evening, but where I really struggle to sleep is on an aeroplane. I don't like sitting still anyway, so I'm sitting there, I'm fidgeting, and for the first time on the way back from DC last week, Steve, I managed to get an hour and a half sleep in through your box breathing technique. So I just want to say a big thank you for that.
Wow,
It's very
congrats.
useful. You've also got a few tattoos, Jacob, as well. Talk to
I
me
do.
about talk to me about those.
Yeah, man. And that was one thing that stood out about you was I saw you at RSA prior to Steve introducing us, and I was like, damn, this guy has cool tattoos. And that is one thing that I always appreciate. And in my previous role, like I was wearing a full suit, so
Yeah,
you
me
can't see
too.
none of that, right?
Yeah.
And now, being in the security community where a lot of people are ex-military or various stages, there's not as it's almost like you look out of place like a sore thumb salesperson if you're trying to wear a suit. And so I
Can I
was able
just
to,
jump in and tell you a funny story then? So
yeah, yeah.
my first proper job in the industry was last year, actually, last March. I started working head of global innovation, big title. I was just doing sales, pretty much business development for a penetration testing firm. And the MD took me to RSA for the first time last year. And because I'd worked in finance for 25 years before, what do you
Hmm.
think I turned up in on the
In a
first
suit.
day? Yeah.
Ah.
And I think I was the only one there in a suit at that point. But do you know what? It still took me time to be brave enough or be sure enough to actually show who I am with the tattoos. I mean, like you, I'm kind of riddled in them.
Hmm.
I've got a tattoo gun myself, and I've done some practicing on my right leg. That's not something that I'd want to show anyone, but it was something I'd always hidden away in my previous
Mm.
career. And even though I've got, like you, sleeves, when you've got a shirt on and a suit on, you'd never know that I had tattoos. So for me to take that leap to kind of show them off. And Steve's made a comment, Tats Rock, their acceptance as an expression of your individuality in corporate environments is both overdue and needs to be embraced, promoted. Okay, I'll ask you all a question here and ask your thoughts and opinion on this. So I'm thinking about having 2 new tattoos. They are tattoos I've wanted done for probably about 15 years, and they symbolize fighting against adversity and family. And they're 2 swallows that you can have on your hands. They also signify street fighters from the old days as well, but that isn't the reason I want them. And it's having swallows on your hands here. And I've been oohing and ahhing, to use a Norfolk British expression, on whether to have that done for ages. And my wife's like, if you want them done, just have them done. But I'm still worried about what people would think if I did. What do you think, Jacob? Stitch is saying just do it. So
I mean, it's just you accepting yourself and then being okay with people just are going to think whatever they're going to think. Just, water off
that's
a
it.
swallow's back kind of thing, right?
Lovely. Love that. And it is so true. Finding yourself comfortable in your own skin for me has been a very, very difficult thing to do. And it's something that didn't happen until I was in my late 40s. And I think
Mhm.
until you've done that, you can never be the best that you're going to be. And Stitch has said, looking like you've been in a Russian
Russian
gulag. That's not
gulag.
really, see, this is the problem, Steve. This is why I wasn't going to have them done. So you've never worried about the tattoo things then. So you were happy to show them off when you first came into the industry.
No, I would say that's not
No.
true. I even the first day at RSA, I kind of wore a heavier jacket, even though I was dying. I was sweating. It was too hot there, but I was wearing a jacket because I wanted to scope the scene. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
honestly, I feel most comfortable when I'm a bit of a chameleon and I can kind of blend in a bit, right?
Yeah.
But after I saw, people throughout there that were openly showing tattoos, I felt, it's a safe place. I'm chill. I
Yeah.
can do what I can, and it's not going to be like I'm sticking out like a sore thumb. I try to read the environment that I'm in.
Yeah. I think that's a very difficult skill to develop, and if you've got one, that's amazing. There's a question that came through earlier. Let me just go back up. What's Estella saying? Hey Estella, good to see you. I hope that men being more aware of their emotions, mental health, will begin to give women that same acceptance to speak about it and get support at work. Do you know
Yeah.
what, me too, and I think society in general, especially here in the UK, we're really poor at that. And again,
Mhm.
being open and honest, I think helps yourself as well, and it helps you heal, because until you're honest with yourself about what the problems have been and what you're struggling with, it's very difficult for you to expect someone else to do that. Here we go. It was Stella's comment from earlier. Let me just move you so your head's not being
Mm.
chopped off. There we go. You say wanting to find people that want to know what we don't know. This seems a bit counterintuitive from the job seeker. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that there's just a bit of misunderstanding. When I say tech scout, I'm not hiring people. When I initially had that title, people thought that I was a recruiter. When I mean tech scout, I'm scouting technology itself. I'm looking for disruptive technology. Um, and when I'm looking for people that want to know what they don't know, that's typically technology leaders within an organization.
Okay. Well, that brings us seamlessly onto the big question of the day of what is the day in the life of a tech scout like? Talk to us about that.
You know,
It's not
every
one the same is the answer, isn't it?
yeah, I feel like that's most people you have on here have that similar answer, but
Yeah.
it's really true. I mean, I can have a day full of prospecting. I could have a day full of meetings. I could have a day full of, I get pulled in a lot. I'm very analytical and detail oriented. And so for some of my customers, I help them run like informal RFPs and comparisons of various technologies and empowering the leaders I work with by helping them build a spreadsheet or comparison document that helps empower them to talk to the CFO and kind of segment by decision maker what they need and how they need it organized to really make that conversation as easy as possible. So sometimes it's more clerical work like that, and um, but also depends because I'm a bit of a road warrior, and I'm less of a road warrior than other people on my team. But last month I was in 3 different states, and I spent most of the time not at home and whatnot. And so when you're on the road, you're just constantly, meeting up with someone for coffee and going to lunch and doing those things. So
Do you know what? Without wanting to come across the wrong way here, it's draining, isn't it?
it
It's
is, it is.
exhausting.
I
Yeah.
would say that like, it comes down to like being an extrovert or introvert. I'm definitely a introvert with selective situations where I can put on the face. I can go out there, have the moxie and whatnot, but social situations are very draining to me. And so,
Yeah.
you do that if you have like every meal kind of tagged to a person, right? For multiple days, it starts to be like, okay, I'm ready to go home to my cat. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
I know the
talk to no
feeling.
one. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about the job?
Mm, I would say the mission and values. And I mean, I guess that's two things, but also my team. I just feel so supported at work, and I have a great team that I work with. And everyone has the same north star of empowering leaders, doing business the right way, not being incented by margin, and truly having a love for technology and wanting to like increase our understanding of it. I think that's a really cool spot to be in because a lot of people when they have sales-esque roles, it's so much pressure and fire on you to
Yeah.
meet your quota, right? And there's not enough time towards genuinely wanting to learn and grow within the technology space that you're sitting
You
in.
know what? We've just spoke about this for an hour, a couple of hours ago on a live stream with a chap called Steve Armstrong from Apex or IQ, where we were talking about the way vendors approach. Everything's become automated, which is great. It
Mm,
works, but we're losing the human aspect of that, the relationship development. And he felt that the industry as a whole is losing that part from the salespeople that are coming through, because when I was taught sales, you're in a classroom with a lot of other people and they were talking to you about minor closing, body language, mirroring, all this stuff. Now
mhm.
you join an organization and they show you the system you're going to be using for your outreach and where you put your messages. I mean, that needs to change, do you think? Will that change with technology advancing even more, or is AI going to destroy it all for us?
I think the human interaction at the end of the day, like if people like you, they'll find a way to do business with you, right?
Yeah,
That's a fundamental thing. But also just there's just a kind of misalignment of priorities, I think, in some bigger organizations where the metrics that they score their representatives on isn't based necessarily on quality conversations or relationships created. It's based on
just a
volume of
numbers game.
outbound.
Yeah,
And that will often rub people the wrong way because they don't, when I talked to a leader, and I won't name her name, but a very, very large institution. And she started as a deputy CISO over there at a large pharmaceutical company. And in the first week of her employment, she had over 200 vendor emails, right? So that's just enormous. And there's no way that she's going to read all of them. So I think there's so much merit in being genuine, doing research on who you're reaching out to, and trying to have something compelling that's relevant to them rather than just Let me put it in my CRM and set these filters and shoot off 500 emails, because at the end of the day, that's not going to get you the results that you're
And
looking
this
for.
is the thing. It's about understanding the customer, whether your tool, product, service is even going to fit in with what they need at the moment. And you think when it comes to the metrics, there's a lot of work could be saved if they did a bit more work on the qualification part
That's also
first.
really, really difficult in security, because people
I'm
will
not going to tell
hold
you.
what, yeah, they're holding it really close to the chest, and they have to, out of necessity, because they don't want the threat actors to understand what they're doing and how. um, so there's different ways of being creative and finding out what they do and how, but I think that LinkedIn's a great resource of seeing who they interact with and whatnot. And I'm blessed that at 3Tree, one of my primary aspects of my role is to show them something they haven't seen before. So I'm not.
That's exciting in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're not wheeling in the same thing someone else has 2 minutes before. Excuse me. The other thing I wanted to mention was Stitch. If you're still in the audience, you introduced me to, I won't mention names, a friend of yours who's based up in the DC area, because I've got an event planned there for July the 13th. Had a really good chat with him yesterday. And I asked him the question. The question was, as a CISO, you have to stay up to date with the latest tools and technologies. You're all complaining that you're being bombarded by people in your inbox. How do you manage your diary to make sure that you are having, insights from vendors and providers, but not taking up too much of your time? And he said, oh, well, we've just introduced a monthly where he takes one day out. And if vendors want to come in, they make a donation to charity, not to him, but to charity. And they each get
Wow.
45 minutes, which I thought was a really great way of doing that. How do you see other leadership keeping up to date with the changes in the industry, or don't they?
I mean, there's a lot of resources. So, like, people will try to filter through the noise, through at conferences. A lot of leaders will ask their peers, what are
Yeah.
they hearing, especially within the same industry that they're in? What are they hearing? What are they seeing? Kind of thing. A lot of people lean on Gartner, which can be a great resource, but there's just a fundamental issue with it being pay to play.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not really as much about the technology itself. It's more about who's willing to shift out the marketing dollars, because it's pretty extravagant to get in those quadrants.
Yeah.
Um, so they miss a lot of vendors because of that. I mean, but it really comes down to networks of people. People will trust the opinion on a technology from someone they work with and respect a lot more than just a person they've never met.
I completely agree. Playing devil's advocate, then let me throw this into the mix. So
Hmm.
we've got more leaders, or more people becoming leaders with tech backgrounds, especially over the last few years, who haven't got that established network of people that they trust and people that they
Yeah.
can draw on. Where can they go? Is that just back to conferences and trawling
I
the
mean,
networks effectively?
conferences are really such a great way to just be surrounded by thousands of people that are doing similar things to what you're doing. But it's just identifying communities that are accomplishing something that you want to be a part of, whether it's InfoSec Live or whether it's CISO series or a lot of the other series that are on there. It's finding, tribes or groups of people that have the similar beliefs as you do and are headed in a similar direction.
Yeah, that's a great answer, really is. And there are, being biased, obviously, I appreciate you saying InfoSec Live, but there are tons of great communities out there. Another one, Simply Cyber, Jerry Auger's
Mhm.
community, does his daily news briefs. I mean, I watch that every day. It's the only reason I know anything about what's going on in the industry. And again, a genuine guy trying to help people. And I think finding your tribe or creating your own tribe is a surefire way to see success in whatever that may mean to you as well. So talk to me. We've talked about the bit you enjoyed. Talk to me about the bit that challenges you the most with your job.
Make a
It's
new
a horrible,
relationship.
horrible
And
question, that one.
I'd say that
Sorry.
the hardest part is creating new relationships. And you're going to hear any like sales rep or sales-esque person say that. It's so hard to filter through the noise, because you can say I'm different, right? But everyone says they're different. So it's
Yeah,
like, how do you stand out in the sea of people? And as well as, it takes a long time to build trust and only a moment to lose it, right?
absolutely.
So there's just, it takes a long time to get into a place where typically I'll build credibility through continuously showing them things they haven't seen or that their other technology partners aren't bringing them, and kind of build credibility that way. But it takes a while, and it's not instant. And whenever you can capitalize meeting someone in person, it'll rocket ship you in terms of the relationship compared to not. And so, for example, with Stitch, you know, I prospected him back when he was a leader at various company, and had some back and forth, and then we were in some groups, and so we talked back and forth, just kind of messaging. But really, it's like as soon as we met in person, we could tell there was similarity in energy and values and whatnot, and it rocket ships you. So if you approach relationship building an authentic way, I'd say take advantage of any in-person opportunity that you can get.
I completely agree. Yeah, as much as I'm all about working from home and how amazing it is, I'm a little bit
Yeah,
old
it's
school
hard.
when it comes to the power of building relationships face to face. I don't think you can beat it. I really, really
Hmm.
don't. The question I want to ask you, and I've been itching to ask ever since I got you on here. So you're out there hunting for the next disruptive tech, basically.
Mm.
What is the next disruptive tech? So we know what the buzzwords are at the moment, Jacob. Can you give us any insights as to what buzzwords we can expect in a year or two's time?
Well, obviously, you know that AI ML is super hot, right? Uh,
Yeah.
how they're actually leveraging that and doing that is another topic. Because some people use it more as a marketing term. They're saying that, like, there's this funny shirt I saw that my CTO wore that was like, it was like ML is in Python and AI is in PowerPoint. Um, so I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny. And you can walk the floor of a conference and see a lot of similarities. Like at RSA this year, it was AI. There was XDR.
Yeah.
Um, there's always going to be new acronyms and new things that are coming up. Yeah, I would say that in terms of it's hard because I work across the full stack and not just security, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of really
Oh, okay.
interesting
Let's
technology.
open it. Let's open it up to the full stack then, not just
Yeah.
security. Answer the question with that in mind, Jacob, if you can.
Do you want like technology specifically, or what are you looking for?
Technology specifically. Yeah.
So like one that was interesting because like there's a lot of security ones I could dive into, but I think that one that might change the culture from the customer experience side is one called Sonus. So we throw various events where we'll invite a couple keynote speakers as well as handful like a handpicked leaders to come join and see 5 to 6 disruptors that we've picked and think are really interesting. And Sonus is solving the accent translation issue. So you ever wonder why they like moved call centers out of India?
Go on.
It's not because obviously because of cost, and it wasn't because of competency. It was due to accent bias. When people got on the phone with someone from India, if they're from America, for example, certain level of friction and frustration that was created. And what
Yeah.
Sonus is doing is they're kind of doing a man in the middle type situation where they're real time using accent translation and using the information and data of the person calling into the call center to accent map and make it reflect like it's a
Wow.
local accent,
That is
which is a
epic.
big deal because then it's like you feel like it's being catered to you. It's someone local. You feel like you can trust them, and that's fundamentally going to shift
That
the
that
way that.
cha- that changes the whole customer experience.
Yes,
And
yeah.
that's
And
why
so
people like local service, right?
yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's like things like that that are just really exciting to me where I'm like, wow, and five like because they're talking about like future roadmap being able to do real-time language translation,
Wow.
right? Yeah. So like stuff like that gets me so excited because it's stuff that will change the way that we interact with each other.
Stitch had a good one when I was over in Tampa. He
Mm,
was talking to me about the augmented reality glasses that will give you subtitles for people who've got hearing impairments. So if you're watching a YouTube channel like this or you're having a conversation, it translates or puts up in the screen in text real time while you're having a conversation. I mean, that's pretty powerful as well, isn't it? I remember
yeah.
when they first started marketing the HoloLenses, must be 7, 8, maybe even 9 years ago now, and how excited I was by that. But apart from the military usage that you see them adopting, X-ray glasses, thanks, Stitch. That's it. Apart from the military side of it, I haven't really seen much come from that. And I remember the initial marketing videos were showing people like a plumber fixing a pipe, and he had the glasses on and it put an overlay of what he needed to do. Turn that bolt this way, this one connects to this. And I just think there's things like this that surely are going to shape the future of how we engage on so many levels.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very exciting.
So next question, talk to me about where Jacob's going to be in 5 years time.
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question, but
It is.
uh, I would say I used to have a very definitive plan, and I used to be so much of a planner because if my I live and die by my paper planner. I write everything in it. I'm very organized in that aspect, and I used to have my 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, 3 year, 5 year, etc. like planned out. But um, I think that started to make me nervous. And whereas I feel like now I've kind of evolved past having a strict 5 year plan because there's not a specific position that I'm vying for. I'm so content with the people in my life and what I am
There we
so
go.
fulfilled by work and
That's the
whatnot
word.
that I just want to remain happy and I want to continue to grow and improve. And I have like a general direction or trend that I want to continue to follow for the next 5 years, as long as that I'm staying true to my principles. But as far as like a specific position or situation that I'm buying for, I don't think I have a
Do you know what?
specific.
That is music to my ears. And my answer to that question is I want to be as content as I am today. And
It's
I
great.
think it,
Yeah.
once you realize that it isn't what you're chasing all the time that's important, but you said it right at the start of this about being present and living in the moment. When you achieve that and you're content in yourself and you enjoy what you're doing and you believe that you're adding value, which I think you are, and I think I am at the moment with what we do, that's enough, right? And it doesn't matter how much money you have or what titles you have. They're not things
Mhm.
that are going to make you happy. It's you that makes you happy, isn't it?
It really is. And I mean, I took initial pretty significant pay cut to come work for Three Tree because I believe in what we do. And that feeling of belief is, I feel like one of the biggest causes of burnout that you see people today is because they don't believe in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that your growth is going to be stagnated if you're not excited about what you do. And if you don't wake up ready to learn about it, then it's like, you're going to be in the same place in 5 years, right?
Yeah, unhappy. I was there for about
Unhappy.
20 years, so I know exactly how that goes. I want to bring up a question now that Estella's posed, and it's in two parts. And I'll just mention a comment that she's just put in. While we're here, the word inclusion being thrown around, it often seems like a buzzword to satisfy the status quo. I could not agree more. And she moved on and said earlier, it seems like tech sales is very male dominated and just a bit resistant to welcome women into the space, which takes us to her question, which was, what is your view of women in tech sales? Any opinions on that?
I mean, anecdotally, I see a pretty almost even split of men and women in tech sales. So obviously that's anecdotally. I don't know what's if you're looking at a study or if it's from personal experience trying to break into the industry or what.
I think
But
from knowing Estella, it's personal experience is trying to break in as a sales
mm,
engineer, I believe, at
I
the
was a
moment.
sales engineer.
Yeah,
Um,
which perhaps is a bit more male dominated.
I could see that.
Yeah,
For sure. I think that I mean what it comes down to is that I guess I have a belief in fighting for your destiny, in setting yourself up, getting being so confident in what you bring to the table and continuously building upon yourself that it's a no-brainer to people for them to bring you on their team. And I
yeah,
think that it's tough, and if you encounter that adversity, that is tough, but like you have to focus on what you can control and what you can't. There's no point in dwelling on things that might frustrate you, that might feel unfair. You have to focus on what can I control and what can I do to elevate myself to, or if you're losing a situation, analyzing why you lost and what you can do differently.
I completely agree. And I think it's easy perhaps for me to say, but it is that self-belief part,
So
especially when
important.
when you're looking for work. I know how hard that is, especially with the rejections that you get, but it's maintaining that self-belief. And if you want to get a bit mystical, I mean, we've all got our own ways of I suppose motivating ourselves. mind, happy and stuff. And for me, I was taught a technique, a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which is very misogynistic and old and written in the 1960s, but the fundamentals of it are pretty good. And it was about the brain working as a goal-setting mechanism. And the analogy it used, and the reason why it resonated with me so much, is I was doing my A+ at the time, and it talked about peripherals of a computer. So the speakers or the audio device, the mouse, this is the input that you're putting in all day, your period of rest. Your mind works as a goal setting mechanism to achieve that. So if you're putting negative thoughts in all day, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, this is going to happen. Guess what happens, right? Guess what happens?
Oh,
Fulfilling
100%.
prophecy. That stuff does happen. And for me, the technique up from that book, my biggest achievement, apart from because they're outside the door, 6 amazing. My other big achievement is learning how to surf when I was in my mid-20s. I lived in the Canary Islands, started off with a boogie board, did
That's rad.
that for a few months. Then had some lessons from a local Spanish chap called Alfonso, who I named his son Alfie after, who's now 24, different story. And I, excuse me, of catching that first wave and how I felt, the exhilaration, the salt water in your mouth, the kind of the wind on your face. And every morning when I'm in the shower now, I suppose this is some kind of association technique, I will visualize that. And if you practice it enough, water again, then I'll think about all the things I want to achieve during that day, trying with that positivity. Is there any techniques that you use to motivate yourself and keep yourself positive?
That's hard, and like that is something that I struggle with, but at the end of the day, like the energy that you put out is what you attract, right? And so you have to be really careful on, you know, because you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react. And so that's like a big component for me, is also then being selected. Another thing also that's a big source of maybe people's stress in their lives and discontent is being surrounded by the wrong people. Don't if people
Absolutely.
are really just negative influences and bringing you down, you got to identify that, and like your environment is so important to your own growth. Um, and some people are in a situation where they can't be that selective and they can't escape that, and that's difficult too. Um, I think it's more of just, for me, I know that when I'm the happiest is when I feel like I'm progressing. And so identifying ways, like for me, every single day, like as you said, you don't feel normal without doing your swimming, or you don't feel
Yeah.
normal without doing workout. Having something that grounds you, that is consistent, that you can be disciplined in, that you know that like if I as long as I finish this, like everything's okay and it's downhill from here type thing for me,
I
at
think
least.
I completely agree. And that, I mean, there's a saying, isn't there? You are who you surround yourself with. And
Hmm.
whilst that isn't black and white or that clear cut, I mean, if you've got like 5 broken, lazy friends, you're not definitely going to become the 6th one of them. The social circle doesn't dictate your actions. But going back to what you said, Jacob, this does.
Hmm.
And how you deal with that negativity does. And as you said, we all see life completely differently. We all have our own perception on things. And I think for me, I always try and take a step back before reacting in any way, which is I used to be terrible at, by the way. And I blame
I
the
would love room
ADHD
for
for that.
improvement on
Yeah,
it.
I try and put myself in other people's shoes a lot of the time now. And even when it's, driving in the car and you've got someone leaning on the horn giving you abuse out of the window, before I would have reacted to that in probably the wrong way. Now I don't react to that because I don't know what sort of day they've had. I mean, they might just be
Yeah.
they might be just an asshole, but they might have had a terrible day. And when bad things happen to us, it affects everyone differently, doesn't it? We have to take
Hmm.
that into account.
I think that's such a great point, though, in understanding they might have other things going on there in their life that led them to react the way that they did. And that's another important thing in a seller, is trying to understand, let's say a prospect is ghosting you. Maybe it's because they're super disinterested. Maybe they're having some sort of family situation. Maybe they're
Yeah.
having some sort of fire at work. I think that aspect of empathy and truly trying to understand what people are feeling and why is so important, and uh, honestly sometimes escapes a lot of people within tech, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of high IQ people with low EQ, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a critical component in forming teams and relationships, etc.
I have the other disadvantage. I have high EQ and low IQ. But you have to learn to play to your strengths, right?
Got to do that. Man, I think you're a sharp guy.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard.
Okay. Well, let's not do an IQ test live online, hey? I think again, it's, for anyone who knows my story, I tried to come in as a penetration tester because I thought it was cool. And if I'm honest, I'd still like to do some red teaming now. If anyone's got any engagements, they want me to put a hard hat on and walk around with a clipboard, I am your man. But in reality, it's about finding out what you enjoy and what you can add value for. And you don't have to be a technical genius to be a success in this industry. There's lots of different places for people. And I think it's finding that contentment in yourself as to who you are and not being deluded as to who you are. That's the mistake I made for a long time, thinking I was an entrepreneurial genius when I'm clearly not a businessman. Otherwise I wouldn't have gone bankrupt and lost everything back in 2019. But what I am good at is connecting people.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, it's something I really enjoy as well. So, focus on what you enjoy. And I love your answer to the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because everyone else says, I want to be CISO or I want to be this. And it's so refreshing to hear that you've worked it out already, how unimportant that is.
I felt like it almost gave me more anxiety and pressure because I felt like I was falling behind on goals. And they're like, it's not a linear path to success. There's ups and downs and side and right and all those things. And so as long as you're
Yeah,
like continuously moving in a general direction of progression, that's what's really important in my opinion. And even if you're in the same role for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, as long as you still feel like you're learning and growing as a human
absolutely.
being is just really important.
And it's back to not comparing yourself to others or thinking, oh, well, they've done that and someone else is doing that. Who cares what other people are doing? This is back to your point on the tattoos, right? Give a shit what other people are doing. Think about what you're doing and whether you're enjoying that and whether you're adding
Exactly.
value. Very important questions come in from Itza. Your headset sounds great and looks very comfortable. What's the make and model?
Uh, uh, I don't know. It's a Logitech. I can get you the model. It was just given to me by the team. It's not a super fancy one or anything.
It does sound good though.
I appreciate that.
Does sound good. I'm a bit annoyed so that you haven't mentioned my ridiculously expensive lapel mics here that clearly don't sound as good as Jacob's.
Also, hey
Well,
Rob. I see
hey
Rob in the
Rob, what's
chat.
Rob said? Great conversation. Jacob Friedman connected a couple of months ago. Chance meeting, glad it happened. Yeah, I mean, if you missed the start, Rob, it was chance meeting for us at RSA, introduced by Steve Hindle, former CISO from Mad Mobile. And I just had to get Jacob on the show, and I'm so glad that I have. We've got 2 minutes left. It's flown by, like it always does. Impart some wisdom for me, Jacob. So we've got a few people here, Estella being one, Itza, I think perhaps as well, who are looking to break into the industry at the moment. Any sage words of wisdom from you, sir, before we wrap things up?
No matter what you do, be a continuous learner. If you as soon as you stop learning, you're gonna stagnate. And this industry moves so fast. Like there's a funny phrase where it's like technology is 6 months to stupid, right? You got to continuously be, if you're really passionate about it, you got to constantly learn. You got to be reading about various things, what's going on in the news, who's going on where. I would just say be a sponge too. That's another thing that
Yeah.
when I was first joining 3Tree, I was so overwhelmed because I was working with much bigger companies with much more complex technology. But showing up every day just ready to learn is so important, especially as someone that's trying to kind of make a splash and enter the scene.
Yeah, no, wise words indeed. And I think for me, help others. There's always someone at an earlier stage of the journey than you are. And you might not realize it, but you can be an invaluable help to them. And Estella, I'm so glad to hear those words you've put in.
Awesome.
Confidence is everything again. And I think Jacob said it earlier, find your tribe, find that community that you can be a part of. that will give you that confidence. It will help to develop that confidence. And it isn't an overnight thing. I mean, 2 years ago, I was scared to open the front door for about 6 months. I was in, a really, really bad way. And I set up the InfoSec Live community because I didn't have one. And if I can do that, anyone can do that. So, if you don't want to be a part of the InfoSec Live community, build your own community, build your own family. And the support you get in this industry from leadership, from other people breaking in, it's not like financial services, trust me. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. And for me, I suppose the final part would be follow your passion and make sure you know what that is. Because I followed other people's idea of success for a very long time. And I suppose society's idea, Western society anyway, idea of success, which is collect as many cars, boats and expensive watches as you can. And whilst that might be great for a few months, believe you me, it isn't the recipe to happiness. So, Jacob, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time. I hope that we get to meet up again soon. If you're in the DC area on the 13th of July, I'm hosting an event between military leadership and private industry leadership. The CISO experience. It'd be great to see you there. But I am also in various cities around the US throughout August, so it'd be nice to catch up.
Are you going to Black Hat in August?
Seamless.
I'll be there.
Seamless. So the idea is I'm going to host an event between Black Hat and DEF CON. I think it's the 9th of August. Makes sense. So it'd be great to have you along there as a speaker maybe as well. We have an open panel debate.
That'd be sweet. Let's connect. Sounds
amazing.
Good.
Jacob, thank you so much. Jacob's LinkedIn profile, I did drop it in, I think, in the chat. Let me just drop that in again now to save you all trawling up and down through the message stream. If I can do two things at once. And yeah, everyone, I'm back tomorrow evening UK time anyway. It's 1 o'clock, I think, Eastern time, 6 p.m. British summer time with Samantha Ramos, someone I met in Tampa. Really, really interesting young lady. Hope to see you then. And Jacob, again, thank you very much. See you all very, very soon. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.